Strap in for another commercial-free hour coming up. We are back with our San Diego Roundtable Pizza Padres Roundtable with almost all of our 97.3 The Fan hosts. Tony Gwynn Jr. is in Arizona with the San Diego Padres, getting ready for the next road trip. But joining myself, Ben Higgins, we have Chris Ello from the Gwynn and Chris program. Good morning, Chris.
Hello, hello, hello.
We have Craig Elston from Annie and Elston. Hello, Craig.
Good morning, unless you're listening to the afternoon replay.
That's
in which
true
case,
enough.
good afternoon.
And we've got Stephen Woods, fresh off a 4-hour program with
Hi, Benjamin.
Well, we got through it. And
Gang.
we've got Annie Halbrun from Annie and Elston as well. Hello, Annie, and thank you for filling in for me last week in the host chair.
It was fun. Very
You should
glad
have
you're
e-
back.
you
I'm
should have-
strapped in, Ben.
You should have easily been Wally pipped. She was outstanding.
She was
You
outstanding.
know what? I
He'd
don't
be
know
happy
how
to.
Wally Pipp felt about it, but I actually would have been more than fine. I don't know how Wally
I
Pipp.
don't know how Wally Pipp felt
No,
about
Ben.
it.
Carry on.
Never checked in with Wally.
We always assumed he was disappointed.
That's right.
Maybe
He
it
might
was
have
a
been happy
giant
about
relief.
it. Yes.
Oh, I don't have to play every day. This is fantastic. Someone's taken my spot. Did anyone ask Wally Pipp?
I always
how it
wanted to
felt
be a role player.
That contract, that guarantee.
Yeah,
about
still got
getting
that money.
Wally pipped. All right, so over the last week, obviously it was a bit of a roller coaster for the San Diego Padres. 5 straight losses, almost certainly the low point of the 2024 season so far, but thanks to a couple of wins the last couple of days, maybe a bit different tone than we would have had for this roundtable. So let me start the questions, and I'll start with Annie since she hosted last week. You get to go first.
Right.
What, if anything, did we learn about the San Diego Padres over these last 7 days with a 5-game losing streak, but then 2 wins and a series victory over the Cincinnati Reds?
What did we learn? We learned that Mike Schultz will continue to gamble on his players, believe in his players. I think we learned that we don't quite know the identity of the Padres yet. It's still being shaped. It's still being formed. And I think that we learned maybe that we can't judge the rotation quite yet. We've got to let that maybe come into form a little bit.
Things were pretty bleak a couple of days ago with the Padres not scoring any runs, looking lifeless at the plate at times. Is it too early to make some evaluations? Did they prove that that wasn't them over the last couple of days against the Reds?
You know, back to your original question is what did we learn? It's not trying to be edgy. I didn't learn a lot. I really didn't. I didn't learn a ton. I learned that we are capable of winning ball games. We are capable of losing ball games. We're capable of putting up big amounts of runs. We're capable of pitching well. We're capable of playing good defense, as we have the last week or so. And it's hard to do what we do on a day-to-day basis where it does feel live or die. It's hard to take the 30,000-foot view. And some fans have that luxury, and they're able to do that. I really, myself, don't. I was never that kind of fan. I never will be. I'm a live and die with every game type of person. But I haven't learned a lot. I learned that we're really dependent on our starting pitching, and if that goes well, we have a chance in every ball game.
Craig, I think the easy sports radio type thing would be, well, we proved they're resilient.
Yeah.
Even after they get down and lose 5
They
games,
fight.
they can bounce back. I don't know that we actually did learn that. Are there any takeaways from this last week?
Yeah, I'll take a swing at your question. I think one thing we've learned that these past 7 games have reinforced is that this team will go as far as its starting rotation takes it. The 5-game losing streak coincided neatly with 5 bad starts from each member of the starting rotation, usually putting the team in an immediate hole, being down in the first or second inning by multiple runs, and they pitched overall to an ERA of around 5 and a little bit over that. That's not how this Padres team will succeed. They won't win with bad pitching, period. They have had good pitching the last 2 days from Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, and they have put up 2 victories. And I think it's almost that cut and dry. This is a pitching defense team, and when they don't pitch, they're not going to win.
Chris decked out.
Scary.
Oh, go ahead, Annie.
That's a scary thought,
Yeah.
though.
Well, we're going to get to something about that in a second. Chris decked out in his Padres orange and blue, a little
Yes,
retro.
I'm having a little 98 flashback
Throwback
after these
moment.
2 victories here, Ben.
Did you learn anything based on 5 losses or 2
Well, the
wins?
first thing I do, I wanted to just say I want to thank the Padres for putting the sky back up where it belongs.
Yes.
Because after 5 days, it was not falling; it had fallen. But having said, I want to piggyback what Craig just said about the starting pitching. Statistically, I don't know if everybody's aware of this right now. The Padres have the 3rd worst starting pitching in the National League. The only teams with worse ERAs are, oh my goodness, the Marlins and the Rockies. So if the Padres are going to be relying on their starting pitching, what this week tells me is they could be in a little trouble, honestly, because their starting pitching hasn't been that good. This team is not going to go very far without good starting pitching. These guys have got to pitch a lot better. Offensively, I think this is what we're going to have this year, unless they make some changes to the roster. It's going to be inconsistent. This is not a mashing murderer's row of offense. So I did learn some things this week. I mean, I still have hope for this team, but right now I don't see anything a whole lot better than 500, unless they pitch extreme like Boston Red Sox well. Boston right now is like all 5 of their starters are pitching lights out, but I'm a little concerned after what I saw this week, honestly.
Well, I guess that is a sentiment that's shared across the country a little bit, because I was actually surprised when I logged on to ESPN. I saw Jeff Passan write in a very long column, item number 7, which disappointment this year is the most doomed? And I go, ooh, these are going to be some bad teams in here. And he wrote, of the first month's 7 biggest disappointments, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Houston Astros, San Diego Padres, San Francisco Giants, St. Louis Cardinals, Rays, and Toronto Blue Jays, who's in the most trouble? I was going, wait, the Padres are a giant disappointment so far this season?
Not to us.
Does that make sense to people? Would you call the Padres a disappointment? He wrote, the Padres and Giants are repeating 2023 in the worst way. Nothing about them suggests they'll contend. Nothing about them suggests bad enough for the lottery. The Giants can't score runs. The Padres can't prevent them. And that is what Craig brought up as the biggest concern. But is it a season-ending, a hope-crushing concern, as Jeff Passan seems to indicate here, that the Padres are almost hopeless going forward?
I don't think that is the case. However, what we revealed over the last week is that the trap door is right there, meaning it took one starter going out of the rotation to have things go into a state of flux, because the piggyback of going through Waldron to Vasquez to a struggling Musgrove was just way too much for the team to overcome. Then Cease, now you're the stopper. Oh, you don't have a great game. Now we're in big trouble. So that is what I think Padres fans have a right to be concerned about. There's young arms coming. They're not ready yet for this club. So they need this group to hold the fort, and they need to be good.
I haven't lost faith that they will get a little bit or a lot better. I think that they're coming off of a weird spring training, a weird ramp up. I feel like they're going to improve and lock down more. Now, you're still going to have some of the difficulties of guys coming off of injuries, Michael King learning how to be a starter, things like that. But I don't think that this is like the peak of the rotation. And by the way, where's the offense then? Where are the guys that are in the top of the lineup? Aren't they supposed to? Is this the peak for them? I don't think so. I mean, shouldn't they heat up and do more for this team?
Craig, you brought up the fact that the young pitchers, quote unquote, aren't ready yet. I think the argument could be made that we didn't know that Jackson Merrill, Graham Pauley were ready yet. They may still not be. Jackson Merrill's been struggling. Graham Pauley has never really gotten it going, but the Padres weren't afraid to promote them. They have pitchers in the minor leagues who are throwing pretty well right now. Adam Mazur, Ryan Bergert, Robbie Snelling. Woods, do you think that it could be soon time to, force a couple of those guys up and see what they can do on the big league level, or would that potentially be more damaging than beneficial to the Padres?
Man, if I knew anything about player development and when it was time to call up players, I would not be here with you and you guys. I would not. I would be in an organization somewhere. All I see are these brilliant highlights tweeted out, mostly by our buddy Tommy. Tweets them out, watches damn near every game. And I see what Adam Mazur did last night, and I go, good Lord. Yeah, looks like he can get guys out.
Did they ever show a highlight of him giving up a double?
No, just the good
Strikeouts?
stuff. Yeah, it's
That's
just the
what I
good
thought,
stuff.
yeah.
But honestly, back to the passing thing, and I know we talked about it on our show this morning, I was a little taken aback that the Padres were put in there. You talked about all those other teams. All those teams have added substantial, most of them have added substantial payroll, added a lot of payroll, a lot of new players. Padres have not. They let go of $92 million. So I'm not disappointed by this team by a long stretch, not even a little bit disappointed. They could have won some games that they lost. They've also won some games that it's gone the other way too. But they're a 500 team, or almost 500. Like that's what I kind of expected. Hang around, make a move, make 2 moves, make 3 moves, and go for it if you're still in it.
If pitching has been the issue, it's our San Diego Roundtable Pizza Padres Roundtable. And if pitching has been the issue, and I don't disagree with you, Craig, and you want to change up a starter, who would it be, though? It's almost hard to decide. You know, Matt Waldron's been pretty decent for a number 5 guy. You can't really give up on Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove now, both coming off really good efforts. Dylan Cease has been overall your best guy. Michael King has obviously struggled and given up a lot of home runs, but he's also shown some of the best stuff. Chris, if you made a change in the starting rotation, where would you make the change?
I wouldn't make one, and I was thinking the same thing about the everyday lineup. As I was going through it the other day. I mean, I know everybody wants Bogarts out, but he's not going out, all right? You know, he's making all this money, and he's playing far below what he normally does. But you go around, are you going to take out Cronenworth? Are you going to take out Bogarts? You're going to take out Kim? I think he's struggling a little bit, but we saw what he could do last year. You're not going to take Manny out. Not taking Profar out. Nope. Merrill, I mean, you're happy with what he did at the beginning. You're not taking Fernando out, and you're not taking Campusano out. The everyday lineup seems like this is what we have. Now, you could improve the DH position. I was upset, honestly, yesterday with Graham Pauley being penciled in or penned into the number 5 spot in the lineup. If you need to play Graham Pauley, please do not put him in the number 5 spot in the lineup behind Manny Machado. I was shocked that the Reds gave Manny anything at all to hit in that game yesterday. If Graham Pauley needs to play, he needs to still be batting 8th or 9th. He's not a 5 hitter right now. He's not intimidating or putting any pressure on anybody. The DH position needs to be addressed. If you want to go with Wade and Eggy Rosario, you have to do so with them at the bottom of the order.
I was going to bring it up a little bit later,
okay, sorry.
But let's get right into that since you did bring it up. Is it time to see Donovan Solano on the big league level? Mike Shildt said he was going to check in during the off day. Do you think that he is now the future of the DH for the Padres? And what moves could they make, Craig, when it comes to improving the DH slot now that Manny's back at third?
But don't let him say Brandon Belt.
Well, they could sign Brandon Belt. I mean, he's out there and he's available, and it would probably cost $3 million, and you could sign Brandon Belt. And I would still do that, and I would have done it 3 months ago, and I would still do it today. It is time for Donovan Solano. Graham Pauley does need to go down. He's not ready at the big league level yet. He's just not ready. And the only thing they are asking him to do up here is hit, because they've already proven they're not going to put him back in the field and play him at third base unless they're forced to. So if he's not going to be the kind of hitter that, Chris is looking for, right? An intimidating player that can deliver. I'm sorry, he's got to go down to AAA. It's time for Solano. He is our stopgap. They better not do with him what they did last year with Jose Iglesias. That's a great point that Braden has brought up on our show. Last year they signed Iglesias, and we're like, well, there's a guy who hits 300. He's an easy fix, guy to come up on the bench, and then they just never called him up and they released him. Yeah, and he was gone. So I'd like to see Solano up literally tomorrow.
Woods, it does seem like it's a good option. Now, Manny's not going to be able to play third every day, though, so that is going to impact the designated hitter position as well. You're still going to have some Tyler Wade days out there at third base.
Yeah, which is fine, every now and then, and so far, Manny at third has been Manny at third. He's been a revelation.
How about that play made in the ninth inning yesterday that a lot of people didn't notice because he made it so easily.
With his bare hand. I mean, it's just,
fantastic.
We're so used to that now, and we've really taken it for granted that he is so good. I was at the game last Friday night against the Phillies, and, we were out of it pretty early, but watching the plays he made in the first inning back, no problem. I mean, the guy's he's unbelievable, the best I've ever seen at third base. And so it's fine to have to give him a day off every now and then. That's fine that you have a Tyler Wade there. That's fine. Donovan Solano can play third. I don't think it's great, but it's fine if it happens. It just, for me, I think we run 3 lineups a week out where you feel kind of like, oh, bench player, role player at the bottom of the order. That's what's been kind of bugging me a little bit, but they're a little bit hamstrung with what they can do. Now, if Solano comes up and is, Donnie barrels, great. That's exactly what we need. We need guys that can barrel the baseball, preferably from the 5-hole. The 5-hole has been like this dark spot all year.
Yeah.
Let's get the topic a little more positive here. We're now a full month into the season.
Well, then go to me, Ben.
Not going to you, Chris. I'm going to Annie. She's smiling across from me. I feel like she's got a positive take.
Ella's in the jersey, but
Yeah, come on.
But you all get a chance at this one. What's been the most pleasant surprise for the first month plus of the season for the San Diego Padres? Who, what, your observation?
I'm going to have to go with Jurickson Profar, and Craig knew I was going to go with that.
Yep.
And I just feel like, where would this team be if he wasn't hitting as well as he is? I mean, it's a team that's been struggling offensively. It's been inconsistent. The superstars haven't yet heated up to the point of consistency that I know they would like. So here you have a guy who has essentially made plays happen, kept them in games, been on base when home runs are scored, so he can score a run there. Like, he's been so much a part of things that I think he's kept them near that 500 mark.
All right, Chris, you're not allowed to say Jurickson Profar now. He's off the board.
All right.
What's been your
Don't
most
take
pleasant
mine.
surprise?
I want to just say real quick that superstars have to superstar, and our guys aren't. But Profar does rhyme with superstar. Just throwing that in.
Profar, go
All
far.
right, my surprise is Robert Suarez.
Damn it.
Sorry, did I get in ahead?
That's
of
a
you
good
guys?
one, though. That is a great one.
You know,
Guys,
I don't
unreal.
know that anybody had him penned in to be 10 for 10 with a 0.79 ERA and basically automatic. You know, I mean, this is his first season full-time closing. He also seemed to – I thought he struggled some in spring training,
Yeah.
at least at the beginning. I thought, we're in trouble. I thought Matsui and he were going to battle for this job. I even thought Usuk Go might be the closer by the time it all got said and done. Robert Suarez is like the best closer in the National League, so that's surprising.
There was organizational uncertainty about him
Sure.
this year.
Sure.
And he's proved that wrong.
All right, Woods, I'll let you go next. Profar and Suarez are off the table. What's been your most pleasant surprise of the first month of the season? Come on, there's still some options out there.
I mean,
21 years old.
Hey, don't give him the answer. I'm still waiting. Like, I'm still waiting in the line.
yeah, I mean, we've spent a good amount of time talking about Jackson Merrill a lot, and we're big fans of him. And I said today, yeah, he's hit a little bit of a skid. It's going to happen. Still a guy I trust up there to get a job done, no matter what it is. To pull a ball when you need to pull a ball, to hit a tough lefty, to make a play in center field, make a play with his legs. He contributes in so many ways. That's not just hitting singles, you know, and I love the kid. I love his mentality. I know he was really pissed about not being in the lineup earlier in the week. I love that. He's a baseball rat, and I love those guys.
I think specifically his defense
It's been great.
has been an unbelievably
Made a
pleasant
really nice
surprise.
catch in center field
That was
yesterday.
that was a
Really good
huge
catch.
risk the Padres took by
Yes.
putting someone who, and when we were at spring training, he sat down at a table with us and goes, "So how much experience do you have?" None, zero, never, a single day, not little league, not high school, never
Like,
out in center field.
How cool is it to make the big leagues, and then you make the big leagues, and they're like, you play center field now. You're like, what? I don't play. My buddy that played for the Rockies, he went up the day he got to spring training. He was fast, and he was a right-handed hitter. And they're like, "You're a switch hitter now." He's like, "I don't switch hit." They're like, "You do now." I mean, it's terrifying. Like, at that level, you got to go into a cage, and there's all these guys standing around watching you, and you're now trying to hit left-handed, and you've never done it. Like, well, you're fast. We want you to hit on the ground and beat it out. I mean, to do that, to make that adjustment at that level that's in spring training where you're allowed to fail. You can't fail at Petco Park with 40,000 people watching you track fly balls. And the fact that he's been able to do it and be a big leaguer for the first time is insanity. It's
Has
insanity.
he ever once looked
Never.
No.
Like
embarrassed
overmatched?
himself,
No.
looked uncomfortable?
Never once.
I thought he might look that way at opposing ballparks.
Yes.
Just getting used to the outfields wherever he is, But, I mean, center field, also a good spot, not right field, not left field, with all those nooks and crannies
Yeah.
usually. But still, just kind of getting used to it. But he hasn't. He's looked fine.
The game is getting harder now for Craig.
no,
We've got
that's
three
fine.
choices off the board.
Yeah.
What's been your most pleasant surprise? in
I
the
think
first
the
month?
group has worked very well. We've taken chalk. It was correct. 1 is Profar, 2 is Suarez, 3 is Merrill, and 4 is Matt Waldron, of course. If you look on the list, most people didn't think he would start at all, that he should start at all. And after one start, most people said he shouldn't ever start again. And he has turned in, so far, the second best performance of any of the Padres starting 5. That's a little bit of an indictment of Darvish and Musgrove, to be sure, but it's also a lot to be said for Matt Waldron. The thing that he has done that's really surprised me is that he has overcome 2 things already in April that I thought he would just not be able to overcome. The first is the third time through the order penalty, because it really got him last year. And I was saying on the radio, you shouldn't pitch him past 18 batters. That should be his line of demarcation. And he's done it. He did it last time out. Got through the 5th and 6th inning, got through the 3rd time through the order, got the job done. The other was being able to go into Colorado and take care of business and pitch one of his best starts, if not his best start. So Waldron, to me, is starting to inch into the category of being like, don't worry about him. He's there. He's not going to be an ace, but he doesn't have to be. He has to be your 5th starter. He has to pitch to a 4-ish ERA, and I think he's doing a great job.
So no one took my choice, actually. After all
Who?
of you are out there.
Oh,
and
boy.
Yuki Matsui.
Regale us.
I'll probably – actually, no, I expected Yuki Matsui
Wait.
to be okay. And this is probably going to anger a few people in the audience in particular, but my biggest pleasant surprise has been Jake Cronenworth
Yes.
in the first month of the season.
He's been great.
I like Jake. I have confidence in Jake, but I did not expect to see the kind of barrels, the kind of power, the kind of all fields contact that we've seen from Jake Cronenworth. The small adjustments, and seemingly were kind of small adjustments that he made during the offseason, are paying off in a big way. In fact, his numbers behind his numbers are even better than the numbers he's been putting up, which are second in the Padres in home runs, leading the Padres in runs batted in, and maybe the biggest reason why there is still some hope for this team, because they needed, honestly, if they had had this Jake last year, the Padres are in the playoffs and maybe even World Series contenders. And I know the timing is bad for him, but they needed this Jake so badly last year, and he just couldn't figure it out. I know baseball's hard. I'm not blaming him for it. But he went and put in the work this offseason. He's changed his game enough that when he gets up there, he's now a danger again. And I wasn't sure we were ever going to see that from Jake Cronenworth again.
Well, I love that you said, I'm glad you went to me quick. I'm going to be quick about this, but I can't help but compare this first baseman to the last first baseman, who both got the biggest contracts of their lives, and one, after 2 years of struggle, came to spring training and said, I don't need to change anything about the way I play. I don't need to change my swing. I don't need to change the way I play first base. I've gotten here, and I've gotten all these accolades doing it this way, and I'm going to keep doing it. And 2 years later, he was out of baseball into podcasting, which is great. It's a great thing to do. But
It's every kid's dream.
Jake Cronenworth, and I know there's people in the audience who think I've been like tough on Jake Cronenworth. Jake Cronenworth was tough on himself. The numbers were tough on Jake Cronenworth. His performance did go down 3 years in a row. People don't like to hear that, but those were hard facts, as Tony likes to say, right? Hard facts. He put in the work. He went down to the studs. He rebuilt himself as a player. And when you do that, you get results.
On our show, there's nothing Paulie loves doing more than taking me out of context and taking a sound right. And when I said, though, a couple of years ago, you could trade Jake Cronenworth, I wasn't being taken out of context. I looked at his age. I looked at what I thought he might be. And I said to myself, his value might be at the highest. And over the last couple of years, I was going, it's too bad maybe they didn't take advantage of that when he did have a lot of value. He's now proving me wrong by going the other direction. And we've talked about the offensive improvements, but Woods, what about the defense at first base? He also put in work there and changed his strategy. They talk about it. Jesse talks about it on the broadcast, playing further away, taking advantage of his athleticism, and that seems to be paying big dividends in the field as well.
So many knocks taken away this year.
You see the ball hit to the right side from the center field camera, and you say to yourself, that's a hit.
It's a knock.
And he's right there. It's unreal.
When I play first base, I have to stand so close to the base because I can't run over in time to get the throw.
Wood, you got to stand in fair territory.
Bro, he stands so far away. I'm like, how's he going to get over for this throw? 6-hopper to second base. He throws. He's right there on time. He's been great. He's been great. And the amount, that's what, like Craig said, I think with baseball players, we do need to enjoy the ride a little bit more, and it could all end. And we've seen great careers come to a screeching halt. Guys forget how to hit a ball. Abreu is a really good example. He was one of the best hitters in baseball. Like average, power, RBI guy, whatever. He can't hit anymore. That's how friggin' hard this game is. It just takes your soul. And it's not for everyone, and to see a guy put in the work and put in the right work is also key as well. It's really impressive. And you wish that everybody kind of had that mentality. They don't. A lot of them do have the mentality of, I'm going to stick with what got me here. Even though the game changes, evolves around you, it's stubbornness, it's ego, you know, and nobody wants to admit they're not what they once were. Very few guys will say, all right, I'm willing to break this thing all the way down and start over.
And Annie, you've covered Jake up close the last few years. We've all seen, kind of the dumb ball player. It works sometimes. You just simplify the sport. Don't overthink it. Jake's not that, though. He's a thinker. He's introspective. He cares a lot about it. And I'd imagine that it's his personality a little bit that you've seen that's kind of helped him make some of these adjustments and evolutions.
Yeah, it really bothered him last year. I mean, it tore him up last year, what was going on. And it's so frustrating, right? What you're talking about, you're trying to fix it. You know you can hit, but you can't find it. He has been through, remember, he toiled through the minors, and so he's been through a lot of adversity. I remember one time he was going through a slump, and he looked at me, he's like, Annie, that's nothing. I went 0 for 32 in the minors once, and of course, like, you don't want to hang your hat on that, but he has figured out ways to get out of things. Last year, I think, stumped even him, obviously, and just that it went on for so long. And so credit to him for using this offseason, really working hard. He talked about getting vulnerable, opening himself up to changes, and, he's a little different this year.
He is.
Because he and Fernando have been joking about they are hitting the ball hard. They're just hitting it two guys. Same thing he went through last year. But instead of him being like last year where he was like frustrated, I don't know what's going on, pissed, he's more like, that's baseball. I'm calmer. I know what's going on. Like, it's a different mindset for him now, too.
It's the process.
Yeah.
The process is right.
Yes.
This is our 97.3 The Fan Padres Roundtable presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. It's actually kind of similar. I heard them talking on the broadcast, I think TV side, about Jurickson Profar's plan going into this year. And instead of tinkering all the time, he said, you know what? I'm just gonna believe in my work that I've been doing, and I'm gonna stick with it. And it has been working for him so well. Obviously, he was our first big positive surprise. He is hitting 342. The last Padre.
Yeah, he's hitting 342.
Let's see if anybody knows this one. Last Padre to hit over 300 in a single season. Chris, you're a numbers guy.
Mark Loretta.
Close. That was 2004,
That
I
was
think.
my
he did.
guess. I don't know. Offhand. But.
Brian Giles, 2008, hit
Okay.
308.
Wow.
Was the last time a Padre hit
I would not
over
have got that.
300
What
for
year?
a single season. 2008.
He ended the season.
Ended the
Okay,
season hitting
okay.
over 300.
That's,
All right.
That's
This
But
is. I'm going to turn this
Jurickson-
into a more philosophical question. Does anyone think that Jurickson will end the season over 300 here? Any hands raised? He's a 240
I think
career
he's,
hitter.
I know, 241. He's 101 points over. Right now.
Saris told us his numbers, his projections this year. He thinks he can hit 260 or more the rest of the year, but he'd have to hit, I did the math, he'd have to hit 288 the rest of the way to stay above 300. That would still be well above his career numbers.
Yeah.
It seems unlikely.
I'm going to go with it.
You're going to go
I'm
with
gonna
it.
go
You're
with
going
it.
to stay
Of
above
course you are.
300.
Of course I am.
Philosophically, though, we see so few 300 hitters in baseball anymore. It's just not.
There was only 10 in Major League Baseball last year.
There
The
used to
entire
be.
Major
You used
League
to
Baseball
look at the
of guys who qualified.
Very
you know,
difficult
when
to
you'd
do that.
follow Tony Gwynn in the batting title, there'd be a list of 20 guys behind
Yeah,
him that were all hitting over 300, and he was hitting 380, so he'd win the batting title.
Yeah.
It's a different game. Do we miss, Chris, do you miss the old game of batting
I do.
average
I would-
with
well-
the new emphasis on on-base percentage and slugging and OPS, which I understand why that helps you win games?
I'm not going to sit here and say the game's not, was better way back when. It was interesting when we followed batting averages, and I think as kids we used to know everybody's batting average. Now, batting average is not an important statistic, but that's why Luis Ariz was a guy that I really kind of fell in love with last year when he made a little run at 400 and was hitting balls to left field and left center and spraying it around. It was fun to watch that and remind me of what hitting used to be all about. But I get the whole analytics of it all. We were talking about the Whitey Herzog Cardinals on our show the other day, a team that stole about 350 bases. And I looked them up. They also got caught stealing that season 104 times. And I thought to myself, well, no one ever talked about that at the time. But that team gave away over 100 outs.
It's crazy, right?
In a season just getting caught
3
stealing.
games just thrown out.
Just
the
thrown
window
right out the
there.
window. So I can understand why we don't run all the time and the analytics are there. But I do miss the singles and the line drives. And, it'd be nice to see somebody make a nice run at 350, let alone 400 again.
It's interesting. I just saw a clip from Bo Bichette. And Bo Bichette's a younger generation player. And they asked him, what's your favorite stat? And he thought about it, pondered it. He goes, batting average. He goes, hitting is really, really, really hard to do. And sometimes you're going to barrel one right at a guy and you get robbed, whatever. But sometimes you're going to flip one out there. It's going to drop. But I'm on base. I got a chance to score a run for my team. He goes, batting average for him is still very important. So I do think it's important in those circles, right? I do. I think that baseball players still go, oh, my 285? All right, that's not bad. I probably get that average up a little. They absolutely look at it. If you've ever played baseball, you know exactly what your batting average is, period, the end, right? Yeah. You know what your average is. I think it's important to them. When you're building a team, though, obviously you can't have 9 guys like this. You need power. You need slug. You need on base. It's got to happen. That's why a guy like Kyle Schwarber can be so successful in the leadoff spot. Strikes out a ton. He also walks a ton. And he hits a ton of home runs. It's different than we're used to. It does make sense once you think about it. But I'm with you. I love it, too. I love guys that can hit. I love that guys that can hit.
You know, the direct question was about Jurickson, and obviously, no. Jackson Merrill will finish with a higher average than Jurickson Profar this year, based on their swing paths, based on who's a line drive hitter. And, you know, Profar's a guy who works the count. Yeah. I'll be very excited if Jurickson finishes with an on-base percentage of 350. Like, if that means he's helping the team. And if he's staying at the top of the order, all the better if he's getting on base like that. As to the general question being posed, I feel like the pendulum has almost started to swing back a little bit, in that we did fall in love as a sport and as an industry with power and with looking at isolated power and you know, OPS, et cetera. But I think the Padres last year showed you the downside of that strategy when you had automatic punch-outs in your lineup like Gary Sanchez or Nelson Cruz, who it's a homer or it's absolutely nothing. Here in San Diego, we're one of the few teams. Cleveland is another. There's only a couple that are actually prioritizing contact. Yeah. And to me, situational hitting, that's average hitting. That's taking the ball the other way. That's putting pressure on the pitcher. Power hitting is not situational hitting. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Padres have been a little bit better, not always, but a little bit better with RISP this year.
You mentioned the name Chris Luis Arias. That discussion happened about a month ago when the season was starting, like trade talks, trade rumors, Padres connected with that. You said Brandon Belt is a name that's still out there. It's not like the Marlins have jumped into contention in the last month or so. I'd imagine they're still exploring and shopping. I mean, just off the top of your heads, Annie, if you want to start, would there be any, package that you'd want to put together at this point to make a run at a player like Arias to add to the lineup, who could certainly be a designated hitter for you, just not without the power element?
Yeah, I think that any kind of bat would help this team. I think that the more bats you bring in would help. But at the same time, I also go, you got to get right within your team. Like, you bring in one more bat, great. But if the rest of your people that are supposed to be hitting aren't hitting, then it doesn't really help all that much. So I kind of have abandoned that idea for get going, guys. Get to where you need to be.
Well, because the ask is going to be one of those guys that we were talking about earlier that can come up and help you this year. It's going to be Snelling. It's going to be Bergert. It's going to be Mays or something like that. There's no question. And that's probably why the deal wasn't consummated, is because the ask was probably through the roof. Would he help in our lineup? Yeah. Would Brandon Belt? Yeah. Will Donovan Solano? Sure hope so, because we at least have him under control. The ask is probably massive for a guy like Luis Arias. And I know he hasn't gotten off to a great start either in Miami, but he's got 340 in him, like rolling out of bed, it feels like.
Yeah, I think the ask was Kim in the offseason, and the deal didn't come together because the deal was Kim Arias and then, work the package around it. Pitching prospect for Arias is really dicey for me because he's a player without a position on the San Diego Padres. The only place he could play is DH. And then you're vacating power in your DH. I know he's a great average hitter, but I'd still prefer Belt because he would at least add a little bit of thump to the lineup.
Xander Bogaerts gets going. It's it's like adding somebody that can hit barrels and hit gaps. You don't need Xander Bogaerts to hit 25 home runs. He's got to be average. Like, he's got to be his average. And that's like getting an entirely new player for this team without giving up a Robbie Snelling or somebody like that.
I do agree when Chris said Graham Pauley in the middle of the order. I get lefty-righty, first time all season, try something different. that just can't. You can't have Graham Pauley until he proves he can be up on the major league level, sitting in the middle of guys who are actually swinging the bat well right now. And that was almost could have cost the Padres that game against the Reds.
Yeah, I thought so, and I was, and I said it before when I saw the lineup, I said to nobody in particular that I'm saying this ahead of time. I don't like this decision.
You got to start tweeting that stuff so
Right,
people
you're
believe
right.
you,
So
right?
I didn't want to, because I didn't want to be an I told you so. But I want to go back to the trade possibility. I agree with Annie. I think this team needs to prove that it's good enough to warrant thinking about trading a prospect to improve the lineup. Because if you do trade a prospect and you do add somebody to the lineup, and then this team isn't good enough, then you lost a prospect. So I think they've got a month and a half to prove to me or whoever, I'm not making the trade, prove to I guess AJ Preller and management that they have a shot to really contend and that another bat is going to help them get where they want to go.
But aren't they? And you're right. You're absolutely right. But aren't they? They're in it now. Like they're just going to be.
They are.
They're going to be buyers, right? They're going to be in it because of the guys that they've committed to long term. The unmovable guys, the Mannies, the Xanders, the guys that aren't going anywhere, the Tatises. You have your core. So don't you owe it to us and the fans and Manny and Tatis and Xander and those guys to say, while you're here, we've committed to you long term. We have to keep committing every single year. That's kind of what you do, I think, when you commit to that many players for that many years. You, Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Jake Cronenworth, down the list you go. You're kind of in it. So the amount of games that you've won or lost in the first 60 days, I don't know that it matters all that much unless you go on a White Sox-esque, crumbling. But I think you look at it right now, you're like, we're kind of always going to be feeling like we're in it.
You're listening to our 97.3 The Fan Padres Roundtable, presented commercial-free by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. And since an hour is a long time to go commercial-free, thought we'd throw in a seventh-inning stretch here with a little non-baseball question. If anyone wants to stand up and stretch, you can. Seems like everyone's okay.
We're fine.
I'm strapped
All right,
in.
so
Ben. I
today's-
can't.
You told us to
Yeah, you
strap
told
in.
us to strap
yeah.
in.
Today's
Got our belts
seventh inning stretch question. Padres are headed to Arizona, which experienced a 2-hour B delay on Tuesday. Which insect bugs you the most?
Look at him. This is what I deal with. 20 hours a week.
Which
21 now.
insect is like your least favorite to encounter?
Mosquito. They
It's
take
not a
your
bad
blood.
call. Not a bad call.
I'll go mosquito.
I hate it when you can hear them in your ear and they got that little sound. That's a
pitch.
terrible one.
My goodness.
And my kids will tell you that this is true. I hate flies. I have the electric tennis racket that I will wave around like an insane person in my house
I've seen
anytime
it.
I see one.
I've seen
that
it.
Do you
gets in-
break vases?
It's
trying to
amazing.
Yes,
swat
I'm a little
flies?
bit like that, trying to just zap the flies in my house because I'll see them in the corner of my eye, just buzzing, and they just always go in circles, like in areas where you can't reach them, just over and over again, torturing me. I get it that they're not going to sting you, and they're not necessarily, they're not going to suck your blood, but I hate flies. I really do.
I'll go with bees. I'll stay
Bees?
with bees. My wife, Lori,
Murder hornets or
she's
just
a little bit
regular
allergic
ones?
to bees, and every time a bee is anywhere in the vicinity, it is a complete, utter, total panic in our family. So they cause me a lot of stress.
Annie?
I'll go with pincher bugs.
Pincher
Not because
bugs.
they don't hurt, but they're just like they pop out of nowhere. You're like, where'd that pincher bug come from?
Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you
Wow.
here?
No one's woods?
I'm going to go with the cricket in Mike Schultz's office. That's the one I'm going to go with because that one by far is the one that's driving me the most
Every
crazy.
post-game news conference.
And I'm like,
Sure, that's not his text tone.
I don't know what it is.
Like a lucky
it
cricket
sounds
mouse.
Get
like
the beekeeper guy to come to Petco Park to find the cricket.
I had
and
a cricket.
Eradicate it.
I had a cricket in my apartment one time. I had a big loft downtown Dallas, and it was old industrial style. There was a
That'll
cricket in
keep
there.
you awake.
Anytime
for
you
a
get
month.
close, though, they go silent, and you can't
I
find
went.
them.
Right.
It was 3 a.m. I have buckets of hot water. I'm throwing it under my fridge to try to smoke this thing out. I lost my mind after like 6 weeks of not sleeping because
6 weeks?
I would lay down and I'd wake up and I'd scream at it. I was screaming at a cricket.
Yeah.
That
that work
cricket in his office is making me insane. When Paulie plays the audio in the morning, I'm like, I can't hear it, man. I got to take my headphones
All
off.
you hear is the cricket.
That's all I
no,
hear.
no votes for ants, which when you see a few in
Oh,
your
yeah.
kitchen, that is a nightmare.
Yep.
Yes.
Fire ants, which I've stepped in on the golf course once. Those are definitely not
Roaches.
fun.
Same.
Roaches,
Roaches.
which are got to be the most disgusting
Disgusting.
things on the
You have
planet.
a lengthy list.
And no one says spiders. I feel like everybody's
Spiders are
kind of
fine.
afraid
They're
of
good. They're
spiders.
good for
Spiders.
they're
Spiders
good
kill
for
all
stuff.
the rest of them.
Spiders,
Yeah,
they're good for
spiders-
everybody.
spiders
else.
are
Spiders kill all the rest of them. Keep them around.
Spider-Man has really changed everybody's impression of
Everyone's
spiders
view.
Keep
Views.
spiders
I like that
around.
question.
nowadays. All right, seventh inning stretch time over. Let's get to the final couple of innings here.
Strap back in.
As we have learned, Mike Schilt sees more silver linings than I do, and I see a lot of silver linings in things. I sometimes feel like it's my job. So through this first month, do we believe Mike Schilt has the right managerial style for these San Diego Padres? And as an essay answer, Annie, compare and contrast his style with that of Bob Melvin over the last couple of seasons.
Well, I need to give Mike Schilt the entire season because they need to hit their adversity patches. And they hit a little one over this past week. And I liked what I saw from him. He kept believing in his players. He kept backing them up. He kept saying, he kept calm, but he also said certain things like, we issued too many walks in this game. We need to clean up some of our bullpen, not being able to shut out those shutout innings that we've given up, things like that. So I appreciated that. He obviously has an affinity for the nicknames, the E's, the Y's, the Swarry, the
Tatisi.
Tatisi.
Machado-y.
But you know what? It's
When
nice.
it doesn't work.
He
know.
comes into those press conferences with usually cracks a little joke about the game. So, no, I think he does. But to me, the jury's out to see a full season because it's not always the manager to me. It's the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And that clubhouse has flipped many a time on certain managers. And so I feel like I need to see it the whole way through. As far as a compare and a contrast, he is more positive and he is more, I would say he's more positive in terms of not wanting to put a player on blast.
I would use the word decisive, maybe. He seems from a fan perspective more decisive than Bob Melvin, who seemed like he waited a little bit too long, a little wishy-washy.
He threw his hands up a lot.
Yeah.
Bob Melvin gave you that. I don't know. I don't
Correct.
know.
And
And Schill has that. He has that, like, he'll make a decision and he lives with it.
He agonizes over decisions.
Yeah.
He will go back and listen to his press conferences, his answers to things. He's that type of guy that is looking at every detail to try to improve. So it's a nice trait to have, obviously.
I mean, I've said it before. I don't want to give the manager too much credit. I also don't want to give him too much fault. It's not college baseball or high school baseball where he's going in and rallying the troops. It's just not. These are professionals. If Adam came in and gave me a pep talk before every show, I'd lose my mind. That's not what I need. It's not who I am. It's not what I want. Let's go. Let's get fired up. Like, dude, I'll get out of here, right?
Is he intimating that he's a professional?
I am a
he is.
professional
okay.
broadcaster.
Yes,
I'm on
he
my
is.
5th hour, so today that's as pro as it gets. I do think he has the right temperament, and I think he knows baseball. He's such a baseball lover and a rat of baseball, and I do really appreciate. He's one of the few guys I think at the big league level that commands respect for a guy that's never played at the highest level.
Agreed.
That just doesn't happen. It's this fraternity. And they're like, oh, you're not in. Sorry. He gets some of that respect. I think he's the right temperament. I love him. He's great with the media. He's fun. I love his down home, sensibilities. But again, prime Joe Torre or Connie Mack sometimes I feel like couldn't manage this team any better. You know what I mean?
That's fair. And building off of what Woodsy is saying, I think for someone like Mike Schilt, you never played the game, to survive in the baseball ecosystem, he's had to develop these type of traits, just like a creature develops traits in nature to
Yes.
survive. And one of those traits is his affability, is his ability to connect with everybody.
Yep.
I've been very impressed with Mike. Here's something that's happened that basically has not been discussed. He's brought it up a couple of times. This team was leaking oil defensively. They were committing way too many errors. Those errors were directly leading to runs, and he has cracked down. The thing I like, I heard one of your callers, it's stuck with me since your caller said it. He praises in public and then he works in private.
That call was so good.
You know,
yeah.
right? To correct things. And the Padres, for about 7-8 games now, have been playing stellar defense. They have been making every play routine and otherwise for the team. And that's what they have to do to win. I really like a lot of what I've seen from Mike. I think your mileage may vary as a fan and as people who cover the team in terms of how long the positivity juice will still taste sweet to you. But I've been very impressed, and I think he's a much more hands-on, detail-oriented manager than Bob Melvin.
Chris, I bet you're a Mike Schilt fan.
I am.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's fiery. But more than anything, he's got his players' backs. He proved that in the game that Profar got thrown out. He went out there and made sure he was getting thrown out as well. He also has proven he doesn't just say he believes in his players.
Yes.
He takes a run off the board
Yes.
to show you that he believes in his players by putting Manny up. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't got to it, probably because all of our shows have torn this down since the decision, was made the other night. But this was a big moment. I mean, if Manny grounds into a double play, Mike Schilt would have been willing to stand up and take the heat for his team with that decision because they wouldn't have scored. But he believed in his players, and that message, I think, carries through to the rest of them.
In many ways, we have framed that as a debate. What would you have done in that situation?
Right.
Would you have taken the run off the board? Would you have had faith in Manny? But I think in reality, there was no decision from Mike Schilt.
No decision
He
at
had
all.
to show faith in
Yes.
Manny. And you brought up Eric Hosmer's podcast earlier, Craig. The only thing that I've gotten out of that is when he was talking with Fernando Tatis Jr., and they talked about the moment Jace Tinkler lost the San Diego Padres, when he didn't have Tatis's back after the 3-0 swing, when he apologized for one of his own players. You will, I would venture, never hear Mike Schilt apologize for one of his own players. He will always have their back. And to prove that, he had to show faith in Manny Machado.
He had no choice.
Good or bad, he had to show faith in Manny Machado.
He did, and there's always it's not even an or. He did, and he also believed Manny Machado would come through. He is that half full guy. But you're absolutely right about that. He really does care about people. I really. Just talking to Mike Schultz last year, the last few years, and this year, he truly cares about. You guys went to dinner with him. We've heard about that, right? He wants to get to know the ecosystem around the Padres, and he understands. He's smart about the politics around it too.
All right, let's look ahead. Padres are heading back out on the road where they actually have performed better than they have at Petco Park this season. Don't expect that to hold forever. Baseball rules are baseball rules for a reason. Most teams play better at home, and they're not going to lose every home night game the rest of the way. They finally got one a couple of days ago. But Arizona Diamondbacks for 3 games, and then the Chicago Cubs for 3 games. Some more tough pitchers, including Shota Imanaga against Yu Darvish on Monday as the projected matchup. Chris, what are you kind of looking for from the Padres this next road trip? What's kind of a good target to build on from the series victory over the Reds?
You mentioned Imanaga, who's probably been the rookie of the year, with all due respect to Jackson Merrill, who we would all like to vote for. Imanaga's been stellar. But first, you got to get through Zach Gallen, right?
They pulled him, actually.
They pushed him.
I
did
believe
they?
they pushed him back.
pushed him.
Yeah.
Maybe Sunday.
Maybe Sunday.
Yeah, they pushed
So,
him
Well,
back.
that doesn't break my heart because he
might still
normally.
see them.
I will say, the guy they're bringing up,
Ciccone?
he's got a
whatever.
cup of coffee.
Madonna's nephew or whatever.
This has happened. This has happened to us.
Yes,
and it's,
I know,
it's happened to us in Arizona.
Yeah.
So
I say,
They are coming
Zach
off
Gallen's the devil
Yes.
that you know.
Yes.
You know what to expect
I
from
know,
Zach
but I
Gallen.
know that I'm
It's
gonna
a pretty
probably-
good. It's a pretty good devil.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to score. I just want, look, we need 3 good starts in Arizona, and we need, 3 good starts at Wrigley Field. Craig's right. If they don't get the starting pitching, this team is not going anywhere. I want to see here's what I've been talking about all week, and especially during the 5-game losing streak, and we joked about it earlier, but the superstars really do need to start superstarring. And Manny, is starting to show signs. The double the other night, spurred on by Mike Schultz's belief in him. But that led to yesterday, where he hit a 3-run homer that was taken back. He hit a line drive base hit and hit a ball to the warning track, all with no protection behind him in the lineup, I'll add again. So I think he's starting to break out a little bit. Fernando's got to stop swinging at curveballs in the left-handed batter's box. It's driving me crazy. And Bogarts has to eventually, my goodness, his OPS is in the 500s. That's bad even for a bad player. Those are your three superstars, along with Darvish and Musgrove, and then you throw Jake in as the sixth guy who's full. That's what's got to carry this team. And honestly, what's been carrying this team are the
Merrills, the Profars,
Merrills and
yeah.
the Profars.
Yeah,
So
the Campies.
This is what I want to see on this road trip: is these five guys to stand up and start earning some paycheck.
Craig, what are you looking for the next 6 games?
I mean, I'm looking for survival first and foremost. I've been really worried about this stretch of games, and the Padres knocked 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati, and that was one of the teams I was worried about. Going to Arizona has been historically bad for San Diego. The Cubs are a good team playing well, and the Dodgers are waiting on the other side of that as the first home series. So this is 9 games in a row against 3 teams that all expect not only to make the playoffs, but to win and go deep in the playoffs, each and every one. Arizona, of the 3, is playing the worst. They have a few guys who are not contributing offensively. So just like I asked on our show for Joe to set you and Joe to set a tone the last couple of days, that's Dylan Cease on Friday to go out there, shove, take game 1, set a tone for this road trip.
It's one thing when you run into a team like the Phillies that's already red hot and they get you. That happens in a baseball season. You don't want to be the team that gets another team going, though, especially one that's been struggling in your division, which I think makes this next series in Arizona pretty important. They have struggled. They are one of Jeff Passan's big disappointments this season. Don't give them reason for optimism and hope because they swept you or took 2 out of 3 and played really good. You need to keep your foot on their kind of neck and keep them in 4th place, wondering what's wrong. It's what happened to us. We got to the World Series. What's going on? Don't let the Diamondbacks build some confidence in this series.
They are coming off their big B game. And they're living
loss,
off that.
though, too,
They lost, but I'm just kidding. The momentum from that. I'm just kidding. You don't want to be the team that gets another team going, and you don't want to be the team that is kind of like, oh well, we're going to play the Padres. That's good. We can take the series here. Jurickson Profar, for as much as I enjoy what he's doing, it is not a good sign that he is leading this team. It is not good for this team. And the bottom of the order, although it has held up this team really to start this first month of the season, that's not going to last forever. No. So I'm with Ello on that.
You can't let Corbin Carroll finally get hot. Don't be the team that gets Corbin Carroll right because he is such a spark plug, such a brilliant baseball player, and he struggled this year. And yeah, I mean you're getting a bit of a gift with Zach Gallen being pushed, and you have Dylan Cease, who's been your ace that game in Philly or here against Philly. Notwithstanding, he's been brilliant. He's a guy we all forgot in our biggest surprises. He's been phenomenal. So yeah, setting the tone is huge. Getting that first one out of the way is huge. But yeah, like with Xander, we talked to Eno Saris on our show today, and the one little nugget he gave us of encouragement was he's not striking out any higher really than he has in his career. Like the contact's weak. He's a click away, essentially. Like he's still not super concerned. If he was striking out a bunch,
he's added bat speed.
And he's added bat
just
speed.
not
actually,
making the right
he's just not making the right contact. So it gives us a little bit of a glimmer of hope. But stepping up, earning your paycheck. I've said it all year. Stars got to be stars, And Fernando's gotten really unlucky at times, chasing more than he needs to. But Manny's barreling the ball. Croney's barreling the ball. Those other two start going. Yeah, we could be. Pretty tough.
I mentioned on our show that the at-bat in which he took the walk to set up Jake Cronenworth was big. So many pitchers, we've seen it, they pitch him inside, dust him off, and then they go to the outside slider. And it's not the old baseball trope, you've backed him off the plate, now he can't reach it. He knows it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
He's ready. He's almost too aggressive, like, okay, they just pitched up and in. I'm about to get that slider on the outside corner. And he's so talented, he always thinks, I can hit that pitch. I'm going to go out and I'm going to hit a home run the other way.
Yeah.
It's really not the pitch you ever want to be swinging at, though. The slider that's 1 inch outside. Even if you know it's coming, it's not a good pitch to swing at. I thought it was great to see Tatis laying off it and letting the next guy, Jake Cronenworth, do the heavy lifting that inning. I'll finish the answer about this road trip by twisting what you had to say about the superstars.
Okay.
I think what I'm looking for at most is the next turn for Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. If they can establish some consistency at the top of the rotation, this is an entirely different team than the one that gets a good start, a bad start, an okay start from those two guys. They go nowhere without a decent season from the top of their rotation. And now they both have a chance to come off of really good pitching performances. Can they do it on the road? Can they do it 2 starts in a row? Or is it always going to be the, we don't know what we're getting with Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove? That would be a tough road to hoe for Mike Schilt when your most veteran established pitchers are also your biggest question marks in your starting rotation every single trip through. So I think it's Monday in Chicago and Tuesday in Chicago will be those next guy's turn. Can they build on it? Can they show what they showed us in their last 2 starts? Those are going to be critical.
Absolutely. And I want to see Tatis's expected results start to match his real results.
Yep.
And it'll be happy times to have Jackson Merrill back as well, because he's leading the universe in road hitting and certainly not at home. So for at least 6 days, I hope that trend continues.
As always, want to thank San Diego Roundtable Pizza for presenting the previous hour commercial-free. And thank you for all the pizzas. I'm going to have another slice or 2 before we go.
Can we just say one thing? I get asked more than
What's in the
anything
box?
else, what's in the box? Nobody cares about the show, evidently. Thanks for watching.
What's in the
But
box?
there's nothing in the box.
What's in
That's
the
the
box?
prop
It's
box.
just show box.
It's just
The
show
prop.
box.
Yeah.
The real stuff's right over there, though. We can see
We do
it.
have some
We
real
can
stuff
smell
just
it.
out of camera.
It's
view.
like torture, though,
Once
having
again-
to sit here and look at it the whole
watching
time.
it
2
cool.
untouched salads, as there are every week. At some point, they're going to
Nobody
figure out
eats
that this
them.
group does
Yeah.
not eat a lot of salad.
Yeah.
Buddy, bring an extra pizza next
Truly
time.
a torture
Onto
practice
the
by our sales
breadsticks,
team. It
onto
really
the
is.
pepperoni pizza, and more coming
Just
up.
wanted to help answer the box question.
For Annie Heilbrunn, for Stephen Woods, for Craig Elston and Chris Ello, and Tony Gwynn Jr., hopefully back next week. I'm Ben Higgins. Thanks for joining us on our 97.3 The Fan Padres Roundtable presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. So long, everybody.